Good morning, Jackson. All right, I think I got everybody. Okay, so first things first, check your email. Next week is spring break. It is the perfect opportunity for you to do your missing work. Many of you have missing work. If you don't have missing work, you're not going to have an email. So if you have missing work, you will have a list of assignments to work on over break. There will also be extra credit opportunities available over spring break, or opportunities to raise your grade. 2 of them extra credit. One of them is a movie called Gattaca. It was open over the February break, but I think only one person did it. It's actually a really good movie. And now that we finished DNA, it should make a little more sense. The second one is the Gizmos. Those assignments I know you guys love, the online labs. And then the third one is a request to retest form. So if you don't like your grade on one of your big 100-point tests, you're going to get an opportunity to retake it. But there's directions. Make sure you follow the directions, like always. But there is on Canvas. Go to Canvas. So we have week 10, and then you have your spring break module. Now you'll notice the prerequisite is week 10, which means if you have not finished all of this work for week 10, the spring break module will not open for you. So if you want to do the extra credit, or you want to fill out the request to retest form, you have to finish all of the work for week 10. All right. And the extra credit will only be open over spring break. Technically, we have Monday, April 6th off, so everything is due Monday, April 6th at midnight. Okay. Questions so far? All right. Thank you, Cynthia, for answering me and listening. Good morning, Aiden. Good morning, Kyle. Make sure you check your email and check out that module I was just talking about. All right. It is a test week. So make sure you've taken the Chapter 8 exam, or nothing else in the week will open for you. Your attendance will be based on one of 2 things today. You stay in my class like we normally do, and you take these notes. If you need to take the exam, I know that you have to close out this window, which is fine, but I need to see your timer start on the exam. So once you click on the exam and you click start, a timer starts for you, and you have 60 minutes to finish your test like normal, but I can see that timer. So if you need to take the test, close out this window and go take your test right now so your timer starts and I can see you, and I will mark you present for the day. If not, if you're done with the test, then stay here. We'll take the notes like normal. Okay? Are we good? I know some of you need to take the test, so take it. Alex, you can. You don't have to, though. It's a long test. All right. So I'm assuming everybody in here has taken the test already. We're going to start the notes. We got 2 sections to get through. They're both kind of short sections, so we just put them together. It was easier to put them together. And so we are essential question. We are starting evolution. So for 10.1, we are talking about early ideas of evolution. And we are going to talk about who contributed ideas to the biological theory of evolution. The most famous scientist we talk about during this subject is usually Charles Darwin, but there were people that came before him. He built on the work that came before him, just like every scientist in existence. So there were many scientists that contributed to the theory of evolution, not just Charles Darwin. And 10.1 was about those that came earlier, including one of his relatives. So Carolus Linnaeus. You only have the first 3 bullet points. That's okay. You don't need to write down the rest. The rest is just more information that I'm going to talk about. But he was a Swedish botanist, naturalist, physician, and zoologist. So he was from Sweden. Somebody who studies botany studies plants. That's what botanists are. Naturalists is just a person who studies nature in general. Physician is another name for a doctor. And zoologist means he studies animals. So he actually had a lot of interests. He developed a new system of organization for plants, animals, and minerals based on their similarities. So he basically said, we're going to group all the animals together in one category, all the plants together in one category, all the minerals together in one category. And then he subcategorized them too. Like today we have vertebrates and invertebrates, animals with a backbone and animals without a backbone. So we have lots of different categories we put animals into, and then plants as well. Lots of different categories for plants. Some plants make flowers. Some plants make pine cones. They're all different, but he started it. Today we call this classification and taxonomy. And we group organisms not only by their structural similarities, like wings versus arms, but also by their similarities in DNA, since we've discovered DNA and we now know how to sequence it. As a side note, Linnaeus' work on the classification of man forms one of the 18th century roots of modern scientific racism. Science has not always been perfect. And if you want to know more about that, there is a link. It is interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me because I'm interested in that stuff, but science does recognize its limitations and its errors. So that is something it's working on. Next one, his name is George Buffon. He lived in the late 18th century. He was one of the first scientists to propose that species change over time due to environmental influences or chance. He even suggested a relationship between humans and apes, though he later publicly rejected some of these ideas. Some of his private journals and private writings, he accepted it. It was very taboo to talk about these things in the 18th century. He also argued that Earth was much older than commonly believed. He argued that it was about 75,000 years old at the time, even though it's way older than that. At the time, 6,000 years was the accepted timeline. He emphasized that natural phenomena should be explained by natural laws rather than religious doctrine. So there should be a separation between nature and natural laws and what the church was talking about, which is a very radical idea at the time. Erasmus Darwin. He was actually Charles's grandfather. He was an English doctor and a poet. And he was one of the first to publicly suggest that the Earth and life on it must have been evolving for, quote unquote, millions of ages before the commencement of the history of mankind. And he was not wrong. We will talk about it throughout this chapter and throughout the next one. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. He was a French naturalist, studied nature from France. He was the first evolutionist who confidently and very publicly stated his ideas, although they turned out to be wrong. Part of them. His main belief was that evolution was mostly due to the inheritance of acquired characteristics as creatures adapted to their environments. And the wrong word in that sentence is acquired. We now know that the traits that drive evolution are inherited. So an acquired trait would be something like if you dye your hair blue. That's an acquired trait. That's not something that you're going to pass on to your children. You're going to pass on whatever your original hair color is. And hopefully in nature, it helps you blend in and hide from predators. But he very publicly stated his ideas and influenced Darwin and Wallace that came after him. All right, and then 10.2 is all about Charles Darwin. So essential question, how can you get evidence of change from something other than fossils? Darwin's voyage to the Galapagos Island provided many insights into evolution. I actually think that's the wrong EQ. It should be the same one as last time. Let's fix that because I can. There. That's better. Same essential question. That next one's for the next section. Who contributed ideas to the biological theory of evolution? Talked about early ideas, the first four. This one is about Darwin. And we introduced Wallace. Darwin went on a voyage to a very famous chain of islands, among many other places, and gained a lot of insight, enough insight to write a 1,000-page book. So Charles Darwin, an English naturalist. He studied medicine and theology. He was actually supposed to be a priest or a pastor, or whatever they are in his religion. But he didn't quite fit in at theology school. And he didn't have the stomach for medicine. He didn't like the blood. He didn't like cutting into things and dissecting them, and it grossed him out. So he was kind of listless and lifeless, didn't know what to do with his life, so he hopped on a ship, got this opportunity. To hop on a ship called the Beagle and spent 5 years roaming around the world. And the most famous spot that he spent the most time in, he didn't spend all 5 years in the Galapagos Islands, but he spent 5 years traveling the world. Spent a significant amount of time in the Galapagos Islands, which is a little chain of islands off the coast of South America. You can see there in the map. And he documented different forms of life, their habits, and their physical structure. He collected thousands of samples of different animals to compare to each other and form his ideas. He chose these islands because of the diversity of animals found on them. Not only was it a stop on his 5-year journey, but he collected the most amount of specimens there. And he spent a significant amount of time just watching nature, what they did, how they ate, how they were formed, all these different animals and plants. But he focused on a few key animals. After his time on the animals, he actually spent 20 years analyzing and organizing his evidence that he collected before publishing his ideas. And he held on for 20 years because he knew that most people would not believe him. Like I said, it was a huge deal to go against church doctrine at the time. And his work flew in the face of all of it, and he knew it. But like I said, he spent 20 years, ended up in a 1,000-page book. And then along came Alfred Russel Wallace. He's a younger scientist that came along. He studied the same things as Darwin and came up with the same idea. He actually wrote to Darwin and said, "Hey, what do you think of my idea?" And after holding on to his findings for 20 years, Darwin couldn't let another scientist publish before him. So he sent off his book for publication. It's a very famous book. It's called On the Origin of Species via Means of Natural Selection. I don't know, it has a really long title, but The Origin of Species is what it's usually called. And from these men, evolution is based on these three main concepts: variation, adaptation, and natural selection. We're going to talk a little bit about the first two, just kind of define them and describe them a little bit. And the natural selection is a whole process we'll talk about next week or when we come back from spring break. But I'm not going to play that video right now because that is your Edpuzzle. Darwin, Wallace, and natural selection. And now you have a quiz question that will ask you, what three concepts is evolution based on? And from your notes, there they are. Variation. Like I said, the first two we're going to define and talk about. The definition of variation is the difference in the physical traits among organisms of the same species. And when we talk about these physical traits, they must be heritable or able to be passed on to offspring. You must be able to inherit them from your parents and possibly pass them on to your future offspring. Those are the only traits we're talking about. Like I said before, if you dye your hair blue, that is an acquired trait. Those are not the traits we're talking about. The inherited trait, the hair color you got from your parents. So in humans, hair color, eye color, height, gender, skin color. There's personality traits. These are all traits we could talk about the variation among humans. When we talk about animals, just using cats as an example, we can talk about fur color. All cats have different fur colors. They have different eye colors. They have different fur patterns. Some are striped, some are spotted. Calico cats have 3 different colors. Those are inherited. Size. Compare your domestic house cat to a tiger. They're both cats. But there is variation among that species. Why is variation important? Variation among a species ensures that if an environment suddenly changes, flood, fire, hurricane, at least some of its members will survive. If you've ever seen the movie I Am Legend, it illustrates this principle perfectly. There's a zombie apocalypse. Will Smith is the only survivor, seemingly. In the end, turns out there's actually another band of survivors that have variation in their blood type that saved them from becoming zombies. Whatever their blood type is, it saved the human race because they were immune to becoming zombies. That is variation. We do have variation in our blood types. Some people have blood type A, blood type B, blood type AB, or blood type O. And it was that variation that saved Will Smith and the band of humans at the end from becoming zombies. It's a really good movie. You guys should watch it. And then adaptations, not adaptions, adaptations. People forget the middle syllable for some reason. I don't know why. But the definition is a feature or structure that allows an organism to better survive in its environment. And Darwin's many discoveries about animals and their habitats led him to realize that these animals somehow adapted to their different environments. They had adaptations to best survive in their environments. And those of you listening in the chat box, can you see this one? What do you think helps him survive? This is what you guys are going to be doing in your assignment this week. There's an animal in this picture. Can you see him? It blends in, yes. So the fact that he's camouflage, his skin color is his adaptation because it camouflages him. Yep, good, camouflage. What about this guy? He could have two of them. This fish right here, the light. What does the light do? Yep, the light in the teeth. Good, Grayson. Nope, look at his eyes. He's blind. He doesn't need to see in the dark. What's he trying to do with that light? Lure fish to him, yes. Brings in his prey. So he has this light to say, come here. And then, yep, the teeth are a little obvious. Those are to eat his food. And then what about giraffes? What's the most obvious thing about a giraffe? Their long neck. What do they use their long necks for? Help them reach food. Yeah, that's it. And that is exactly what you guys are going to be doing in your assignment this week. You're going to be looking at animals, your favorite animals, the most interesting animals you can find, whatever. You're going to list 2 adaptations, so 2 physical structures or features that help them survive. And then how does it help them survive? All right. But that is it for the notes. So finish these notes. Don't forget your summary. You got to write a summary. You can write one summary for both sections. That's fine. The video will be up after lunch if you need more time to fill in the blanks, and then complete the rest of your work for the week. As I said in the beginning, check your email for your missing work, and then check out the spring break module on Canvas that will not open unless you are done with week 10, with all the work for week 10. Okay?